Ethics. Etikk. Ethics is thinking carefully about what is right and wrong, beyond habits and feelings. Example: when developing facial recognition systems for public spaces, engineers must ask if risking people's privacy is justified by potential security benefits. Morality. Moral. Morality is the set of rules and values we live by naturally, often without thinking. Example: most people instinctively feel that using child labor in cobalt mines to build smartphones is morally wrong, even if they still buy new phones every 2 years. Normative ethics. Normative etikk. Normative ethics tries to find general rules or principles that define what is right in all situations. Example: setting international laws to ban chemical weapons is based on a shared belief that causing mass suffering is always wrong. Virtue ethics. Etikk. Virtue ethics focuses on the character of the person acting, not just the action itself. Example: a tech engineer refuses to work on the Abshir app, even though it is legal in Saudi Arabia, because justice and equality are virtues they believe in. A golden mean, den gillen middelvei. Virtue is about finding the right balance, not too much, not too little. Example: in nanotechnology, developers must balance between using implants for medical benefits without crossing into extreme surveillance of the human body. And duty ethics. Etikk. Duty ethics says you must follow moral rules no matter the consequences. Example: a researcher refuses to buy stolen health data from some countries for a project because respecting privacy is a duty, even if the data could lead to medical breakthroughs. And categorical imperative. Kategoriske imperative. Only act in ways you believe everyone else should act too. Example: if everyone sold private medical data for profit, trust in doctors and researchers would collapse, so doing it cannot be morally right. Humanity formula. Humanitätsformuleringe. Always treat people as valuable in themselves, not as tools for profit. Example: a biotech company decides not to commercialize brain implants for advertising, respecting people's autonomy over their own thoughts. And consequence ethics. Konsekvenstik. Consequence ethics judges actions based on the outcomes they produce. Example: in programming self-driving cars, should the car sacrifice its own passenger to save 4 pedestrians? Consequence ethics would say yes. Maximize the lives saved. Utilitarianism. Utilitarisme. Utilitarianism says the best action is the one that brings the most happiness to the most people. Example: free COVID-19 vaccines are distributed globally to save millions, even if it costs wealthy countries more in the short term. Hedonic calculus. List calcile. A method for calculating how much happiness or suffering an action will cause. Example: scientists use hedonic calculus when deciding if risky gene therapy is worth approving, balancing possible cures against the risk of side effects. Applied ethics. Anvendt etikk. Applied ethics applies ethical thinking to real-world problems like technology, medicine, or the environment. Example: discussing whether CRISPR gene editing should be allowed to prevent serious diseases, while avoiding creating designer babies. Technology ethics. Teknologi etikk. Technology ethics examines how inventions affect people and society. Example: is it acceptable to allow tech companies to implant memory chips that improve brain function but also allow potential surveillance? Planned obsolescence. Planlagt foreldelse. Making products that break or become outdated quickly to force people to buy new ones. Example: smartphone companies deliberately produce batteries that last only 2 years, creating enormous electronic waste and ethical concerns about sustainability. Publicity principle. Offentlighetsprincippet. Only act in ways you wouldn't be ashamed of if they became public. Example: a company developing combat drones should ask, would we be proud if everyone knew how our drones were used? And responsibility. Diffusion. Ansvarspulverisering. When many people are involved in creating a technology, no one feels personally responsible for negative effects. Example: in building AI surveillance systems, each team claims they only built a small part, avoiding accountability for misuse. Atomic bomb example. Atombomben. Scientists developed the atomic bomb during World War II, believing it was necessary, but later questioned whether they were responsible for its devastating use. Example: today, AI researchers developing autonomous weapons face the same ethical questions about responsibility. Weapons technology, Teknologi. Developing weapons like combat drones and chemical agents raises deep ethical concerns about whether creating such tools is ever justified. Example: an engineer working on drone software might argue they are just building the system, but ethics demands reflection on how it will be used. Information technology and privacy, Teknologi or personvern. Collecting and using private data involves constant ethical challenges. Example: is it right to collect people's private browsing data to improve ads if users are not fully aware? And nanotechnology. Tiny devices can be inserted into bodies for health or for surveillance. Example: microchips could help paralyzed people walk, but they could also allow governments or corporations to read or control thoughts. Where should we draw the line? Chipata, self-driving cars, self-kjørende biler. Programming life and death decisions into self-driving vehicles involves serious ethical choices. Example: should the car always protect its owner, or should it act to save the most lives, even if it sacrifices the passenger? Then robots, roboter. As robots become more human-like, ethical questions arise about how we treat them. Example: is it ethical to use robots in elderly care if it leads to loneliness and dehumanization, even if the robot does a good technical job? Material extraction, raw material utvinning. Extracting resources like cobalt for electronics raises global ethical issues. Example: children working in dangerous Congolese mines for our smartphone batteries. Is it acceptable to ignore human rights for technological convenience? Internationalization and technology, Internationalisering og Teknologi. Technology crosses borders and raises cultural clashes about ethics. Example: should Western tech companies offer apps like Abshur that help men control women's movements, even if they are legal in some countries? Health and medicine, Helse og medicin. Developing new treatments raises questions about cost, side effects, and animal testing. Example: is it right to allow animal experiments to create new cancer drugs, even if it causes suffering to animals? Gene technology, Technology. Altering genes can eliminate diseases but also create risks of social inequality. Example: editing genes to remove fatal diseases seems good, but what about editing for eye color, intelligence, or muscle strength? Where is the limit? Gene mapping and self-knowledge, genkartlegging og selvkunnskap. Knowing our own genetic risks can be empowering, but also psychologically harmful. Example: should you know if you have a high risk of developing Alzheimer's at a young age, even if there's no cure?